your coffee break with me. Come and take your coffee break with me. Come and take your coffee. Come and take your coffee. Come and take your coffee break with me.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Coffee Break with Candace and David. I'm your co-host, David Marino. And today we are with Jason Vines, who is a special effects artist. You've done a lot of different things. And I saw your website. There's so many different projects you've worked on. And I'd like to talk to you about some of that. So first off, what got you into the special effects world?
I started out as just a fan of the movies. Growing up, I loved watching horror movies and fantasy movies and anything by Jim Henson. I would just eat it up. So just being a fan of those and being just very curious as to how did they do that? That is what drove me to kind of seek it out. Yeah, because it's just so cool.
Yeah, and you don't think about the work that goes into, even like you said, Jim Henson, Muppets and all of that. There's so much work that goes into that and artistry that people probably don't realize. What was your first major project, or what did you get started on where you said, okay, this is something I'm going to really pursue and continue to move forward in this?
Well, it started with Halloween. There was an ad on MySpace, if you can remember that far back. There was just a little banner ad that says, "You want to do Hollywood style makeup? Click here." And it's like, yeah, I want to do that. So I clicked, and it was a website that sold foam latex prosthetics, which I had never even heard of. But it's the stuff they glue to actors' faces to change the entire shape and structure of their face so that they look like demons or aliens and such. So I ordered some foam latex prosthetics and put them on in my bathroom, painted it all up, and I went out for Halloween, ran into a big group of friends of mine, and they didn't recognize me. They had no idea who I was. And I just messed with them the whole night long. I knew things about them that they were like, who the hell is this guy? He keeps following us and telling us stuff about ourselves. And, but anyway, it was just that kind of rush. Like, you can change yourself that completely. Made me go, I want to do this more. So I ordered more, and I set up photo shoots with friends of mine. And I had a photographer friend, and we would get together. I'd pay everyone in pizza. And I just started doing these photo shoots on my own, wanting to put together a portfolio. Because I thought, okay, if I want to get a job doing this, I got to have a portfolio. So I just started out with friends of mine, slapping makeup on them and spending the day hanging out. And it was really fun, and it actually worked. It got me a job.
And so you've done a lot of things in film and on television. How did you get into film, or what was the first, I guess, film or television project that you did, and what was it that you did for them?
So the first one that I got hired for was by a film company called Blue Goggles Films. And they were doing a lot of short films based on video games. And the very first one that I worked on with them was for a Resident Evil game. And I got a call, and that was like, hey, can you make like 20 zombies in a couple of hours? And I was like, yeah, sure. Not knowing at all what that entailed. So I got the job and showed up, and it was crazy, super fast paced, and a little overwhelming. But you had to get really creative, and I was going to like craft services and grabbing bags of Doritos and crunching them up and like sticking them all over actors' faces and stuff like that, and painting them up and making them look really disgusting. So it was I learned a lot on that one, but then they asked me to come back and kept asking me to come back over and over again. And I made a lot of short films and a feature film with Blue Goggles.
And that's here in Austin, right?
Yes, that's right.
And that then led to some other work in Austin, right? You've done some other like film projects and
exactly. Word kind of gets around, it's a pretty tight-knit community and small community of filmmakers here in town. And if a director's like, has another director friend going, oh man, I need this like one creature. Do you know anybody who can take care of it? They would drop my name and I would get a call, and then that director would refer me to someone else, and so on and so forth. So just by word of mouth, I started getting a lot more gigs. And I was trying to be an actor at the time, believe it or not, getting zero calls for that. But I just kept getting asked to do these makeups over and over again. And finally, I was like, you know what? I'm a makeup artist. That's what we're going to do now.
And this is a great place for that because
Mhm.
there are a lot of film projects and filmmakers in the Austin area.
Yes.
When you think back to some of the things that you've done, what is a project that really stands out for you in terms of artistry and just what you provided for that specific film or
Mm.
television show?
A big one that comes to mind is a UT student film I worked on called Middle Witch. I made a lot of puppets for that one. Among other things, I made a giant egg and a huge, like, life-size nest out of a papasan chair. But the main character that I made was a giant bird. Now, the bird in the film is about 12 feet tall. So I made a life-size head that was a handheld puppet that we would use for all the close-up shots. So when the bird's interacting with an actor up close, we would use that one. But then when it's a wider shot, I had a medium-sized bird that had the full body. And we would puppet that one with rods and open and close the mouth and flap the wings. And we shot that on blue screen. And then I had an even smaller one that would just flap its wings. We had one scene where the bird flew away with one of the characters, like, holding onto it with its talons. So I had a remote controlled flying bird that I used.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And here on the table, we have a number of things that you've actually made. Can we talk about some of these things? Specifically, this first one, I'll just kind of hold it up. This is actually a mold of your head, right?
Yes, that's from a life cast of my own head. And this has actually been used several times. We would fill the cavity, my giant noggin, with fake blood, and then it would get smashed on screen and, like, explode in a geyser of blood. It's been used in a number of films, and even on Fear the Walking Dead. They used it to they dropped him off a building once, and then I think used my head as to blow up some zombies with actual explosives.
And since you brought it up, Fear the Walking Dead is one of the projects that you've worked on, which is a high profile one.
Mhm.
What kind of things did you do for them?
My main job on Fear the Walking Dead was being a prop fabricator. So I made all the zombie killing weapons, things that are very similar to what's on the table right here. Lots of guns and knives and improvised melee devices, but also just really everyday objects. I molded an office chair. I molded fire hydrants, little like portable radios, like, little jam boxes. All that kind of stuff, just to make foam versions that people can get smacked in the face with.
And how did you get involved in that in Fear the Walking Dead? How did you end up, for those who don't know, that the show for a while was filmed here in Austin,
That's
right?
Yeah. Seasons 4, 5, 6, and 7 were all filmed here. And then they decided to move on to Georgia for season 8. But yeah, that was the way I got into it, though, was just being at the right place at the right time. There was a friend of mine was already working on the show, but she had an opportunity to go do something else, a different type of job that she wanted to take on, but she needed someone to take her place. And she called me up and said, "Hey, if you're interested, there's a prop maker position available. I can put you in touch with the boss." And I said, "Absolutely, yeah." So the boss called me. We spoke. This was on a Friday. I was in my shop just working on some personal projects. I said, "Yeah, I can come by on Monday and talk to you." He's like, I really need you to come in today. Can you come by?" And it's like, "Sure." I dropped everything, got in the car, drove down, got hired on the spot. So just saying yes and being in the right place at the right time, that's how I got on that show. And it was tough. It was kind of trial by fire. I've made props before, but never at this volume. It was really, really fast paced and very difficult, especially in the beginning.
I was going to say, what was it that you took away from that experience? Because prior to that, you'd already had a lot of experience in the film and television world here in the Austin area. But that's, as you said, a different level. So what did you take away from that project, or how did it make you better at your craft?
Well, repetition and just doing the work over and over and over again and improving it each time you do it made me much better at mold making in particular. Mold making is not something anyone's naturally born gifted with. It is a learned skill, and it's difficult to learn because there's not a lot of places to go and learn it. You can look up YouTube tutorials, and there's a few other like online resources for learning how to do that, but there's no substitute for just getting hands-on, getting your hands dirty and making a mold. And lots of trial and error was involved. I messed up so many molds in the early days, and I'm still very capable of messing up a mold today. Don't get me wrong, but I've done it hundreds and hundreds of times now. So that made me much better. And that doesn't happen on a short film you're doing for a UT student. You make one mold and then you're kind of done. And you may be like, oh man, next time I'll make that a little bit better. On Fear the Walking Dead, next time is tomorrow. Like, you get to make one every single day, sometimes several in a day, and you just get faster at it. And it's not just the repetition, but the pace. You know, it's like you're doing television. You're not doing just a movie. The movie, it's kind of a one shot and you're done. With television, it's relentless. It never ends.
So Jason, explain to me how you make a mold of specifically a knife.
Okay. So the first thing that we do is we start with a box. So imagine that this is just the wooden box here. And then I drill all these holes in it. I'll drill the large ones and the small ones. These are called bleeder holes. And we'll take that box and imagine this is completely empty. I will fill one side of it with clay and embed a knife in it halfway. So half the knife is sticking up out of the clay, right? And we want to get that perfect center line. And you also put what's called a sprue in the end of it here. So this will be like a plastic piece right here. Then I take this, which is empty, on top. I'll tape it around, and then I'll pour silicone in here and let it set. Once it's set, I open it up. The knife is now stuck on this side, and the clay is still over here. I will remove all of the clay from here, so we have just an empty box with the holes in it. I'll put that side on, tape everything up, and pour silicone in here. Once that silicone is set, open up the whole thing, I pull the knife out, and now I have a silicone mold that has a void in the shape of the knife that I want. And it captures the most minute detail. You can even see like the brand name on this one right here. Like it gets microscopic detail. So that's essentially how you make.
Let's talk about some of these other things that are on the table. So you made this, which is like an alien looking. Can you talk about that one too?
I can. My wife is a huge X-Files fan, and her birthday was coming up, and I wanted to make her something. This is my version of an alien that might show up on X-Files. It's cobbled together from many different references, but mostly just me making it up as I go along. That's kind of the way I like to design. I just start putting clay down, and the shapes just start to kind of reveal themselves to me. But that was a gift from my wife for her birthday.
Let's just go down the line. What's the next one?
So this is my tribute to The Mandalorian. This is all made out of EVA foam, which is very popular with like cosplayers and that sort of thing. I just wanted to make a Mandalorian helmet because I love that show, and and I love Mandalorians. Boba Fett was my favorite Star Wars character. Next we have this is a character I call Nellie. Nellie was probably about the third thing I sculpted when I first taught myself how to do this, and I had just a broken halogen bulb laying around, and I knew I wanted to incorporate that into the sculpture, so that's literally what I started with, was the bulb, and just kind of went from there. But I like Nellie a lot. She's a little rough around the edges, but I learned a lot making her. And the next one I have is Baba Yaga's house. That one I just made for fun. I love the tale of Baba Yaga and the witch that lives in the woods and has a house with chicken feet. So I just thought it'd be cool to try it out. And they had these little birdhouse things on sale at Michael's one time. So I bought one, and this is what I did with it. Next to that is the Pizzard. It's a pig lizard. This is actually a mask. If I can open the mouth with one hand here. I played this character in a short film called Save Yourself. which is hilarious, by the way. If you get a chance, look that up. I played this character and was dressed in the ghillie suit, wore this mask, and sweated profusely for a few days. But it was a lot of fun, and that movie's just ridiculous. I highly recommend checking it out. And then next to that is the poor beaten up mask from a movie that I did called Last Girl Standing. That was the kind of all the work I did with Blue Goggles led up to Last Girl Standing, where I played this character, which they just called the Killer or the Hunter. Sorry, that's what it was in the film. And that was a lot of fun. It's a little beat up. It has these antlers that are supposed to be on it, but over the years they've just kind of fallen off. So poor thing. I should repair it. That's what I should do.
That's awesome. How long does it take, specifically this lizard, how long does it take to make something like that?
I would say, I mean, I spent a month, give or take, making this thing. And I mentioned the trial and error, like with the mold making. The same thing can happen on fabrication builds like this. You'll start down one path thinking, oh, I've got this all figured out. And then you run into a snag and you have to think on your feet and course correct. So I had to make and remake this thing just to get it right. Because I would make it, I'd put it on my head and it would fall apart. And then I'd reinforce it, put it on. Oh, now it's too tight. So now I got to make it bigger. You know, it's like things like that get in the way. And that's what ends up taking a month. And then painting it was just a meticulous process as well.
And I was going to ask, on film especially, do you have to take that into consideration, like how something's going to show up on camera?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lighting is everything. And the light that you're often working with in your studio is completely different than what's going to be happening on set. Like right now, this thing looks fake. You know, you're looking at it under these bright lights in here. But if you put it on set in the dark, this thing would be like hiding in the bushes and stuff, and you know, would have a little bit of movement to it, and you would just see like little flashes of it a lot of times. And then when it was shown, you know, out and about, it was under like, you know, indirect sunlight. You know, there's a lot of shadows on it and stuff. So it ends up selling a lot better that way instead of being under these bright, like, you know, fluorescence or LEDs or whatever. But yeah, you absolutely have to keep that stuff in mind, you know, with makeups and with any kind of characters or even your props. How's it going to be lit, you know, and trying to plan ahead for that as much as you're able. It's definitely is a consideration.
So when I look at all this and see just the small example of the work that you've done, and on your website, atxfx.com, you can see more of the work. It looks, I mean, it's so realistic. It's so much work goes into this. Did you have any training in doing this, or was this just something that you started doing just, you know, like you said earlier, just kind of playing around? And did you have any background in makeup or molding or anything like that?
Not really. I'm 100% self-taught.
Wow.
And this is just me wanting to know how to do this stuff. So just curiosity and a little bit of obsession. I'm not gonna lie. You kind of have to be a little bit obsessed with this stuff, because otherwise you would never stick with it. I just wanted to know how to make this stuff, and I would make something and it would look kind of cool, and I would get really good positive feedback, and other people are like, oh man, can you make me one? That kind of thing. And that's kind of helps feed you and keep you going. But always like stretching and trying to learn like the next thing, or having like a project in mind, like, oh, I want to make this, but in order to do that, I have to teach myself how to sculpt. I've got to learn a little bit of chemistry. I've got to, you know, there's like all these different disciplines that kind of come in together. So no, I didn't really have a background in this kind of stuff, but I just enjoy teaching myself how to make cool looking things.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because there's so much versatility, right? Because you know, doing a sculpture is completely different from doing makeup on somebody, which is also different with some of these other pieces that you have to add fabric and different types of things. So, I mean, there are so many different elements that go into producing a piece, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of my favorite parts of having like this kind of career is I'm always doing something I've never done before. Like almost every day is just something completely different. And you have to be able to diversify and kind of think on your feet. The number one skill anyone could have in this position is being a creative problem solver, because you're going to run into snags and problems the entire process and figuring out, okay, well, how do I do that? Some people have sometimes figured out how to do this before, so you watch a YouTube tutorial, but sometimes there's no pathway and you just kind of have to try different things until you find something that works.
Is there something that you haven't done yet that you're interested in doing, or something that you're thinking about that you'd like to tackle in terms of, your art, your projects?
Animatronics.
Okay.
That's the thing I really would love to do a lot more of. I love puppets. It's my favorite thing to build. The type of puppets I've done so far have been very, very Henson-esque, very Muppet-esque. So they're hand puppets, and sometimes hand and rod. That means they'll have a rod to control one of the hands. I love that style of puppet, but I would also love to build a huge creature suit that I can put an animatronic head on top of, and with a remote control the facial features and stuff like that. That seems next to impossible to me to create, but I want that challenge. Like I want to learn how to do that from start to finish. And and there's other stuff too, like stop motion animation. I want to dabble in that as well. So there's plenty of things that still to learn. There's so many different disciplines.
I was going to say, it seems like it's endless, because even as technology changes and film changes, and you have to adjust with that, right? With what you do.
That's true. Yes. And there's a lot of visual effects, CGI and stuff like that too. And I enjoy that.
Yeah.
But it's not the thing that I want to make.
That's what I was going to say. I appreciate more of the realness and the
practical effects. Sure.
Yeah, because CGI, you see that all the time in big Hollywood pictures, but to have something like this and to know that maybe it takes longer, but the work that goes into it, I just feel like there's more of a reward for some, especially like for you.
Yeah, I agree. And there's so many different types of rewards. I mean, I as an actor, interacting with like a real creature that's on set, as opposed to like a guy in a blue suit or a tennis ball that you're supposed to look at, that's your eye line or something. Being able to, I think it impacts your performance. Being a director and being able to light an actual physical object, it can make a big difference. So I think you get options that you can't possibly have if you're doing a pure CGI like character with a practical character, whether that be a makeup or a puppet or a creature suit or what have you. And also there's just a certain charm to it. If you watch movies that were made back in the 80s that have those practical effects, a lot of times those effects still hold up and they look just as good today as they did back then. But if you look at early CGI, that's not the case. It looks very, very fake and kind of cheesy and stuff. So,
well, you can see like now from some of those older films that started doing that, you can see now kind of the outline on the green screen
exactly.
and in like 4K or whatever. It's funny to see that, but then you're right. I grew up watching scary movies and the campy movies from the 80s, but some of those special effects, like, those artists back then, they had to do the molds, they had to do all that stuff. And it does still look real when you're watching it on your TV today.
Absolutely. And I think the best method is to combine all the tools. CGI is just a tool in your tool belt as well. And it can be used to enhance practical effects as well. And if you use them all together, even in like a single scene, like when you're making cuts back and forth, you never know what kind of effect you're looking at, and that all blends together to create, that suspension of disbelief. One of the best examples is Jurassic Park. All the dinosaurs in that, like in any given scene, they could cut from a CGI version to a life-size version to a small puppet version, and all that blended together to create a single performance.
And that's a perfect example of a movie that has held up when you look at the original Jurassic Park, because it is so real. I mean, you don't see that, the outlines or anything like that. No. I mean, it looks real.
Yeah. The only thing that really kind of sticks out in that movie to me is the computers. They get all excited. CD-ROM. Oh, cool.
Yeah. So in Austin and, in your world, there are people that do what you do, but in Austin, is there a community of I would imagine there's a community of people who are in special effects. That do you ever work with any of those people or
Every now and then, the trouble that you run into is that everyone, it's a very small community, first of all, and often there's only one of you on any given set, so it's not often that you're put together with another special effects
Okay.
artist. That does happen from time to time, but a lot of times it's like, oh, he's working on this project and I'm over here and this guy's over here. So
especially on more independent films
Yes.
because there's not as much money that you can spend, so
That's
you do
right.
get your one person and that's it, right?
That is absolutely right. Yeah, on some of the larger projects, that's when I've had the opportunity to work with some of these other people who are. There's a lot of talent in this town, and I've learned so much because they've also been very, very generous with their knowledge with me, which I'm so thankful for. But yeah, I've had the opportunity to work on some larger projects, like Fear the Walking Dead. I did a little bit of work on Alita Battle Angel as well. But just being able to kind of go in and learn from people is invaluable. I wish it happened more often. I think that would be great. That's one of my dreams, is to be able to help kind of foster more of a community of makers in general, not just special effects, but woodworkers, fine art sculptors, glass blowers, what have you. Just like get these people together to kind of share thoughts and ideas, techniques, or just things that they think are cool.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really cool.
As a kid, did you dabble in any of this, or was this kind of later in your life?
Most of it was later. I did dabble a little bit. I always dressed up for Halloween, and I remember in middle school I did my first makeup. I made myself up to look like a burn victim. So I had, at one of the Halloween stores or something, and bought some liquid latex and toilet paper, and had just kind of smeared it all over my face and just looked like I had been horribly, horribly burned. That, and I had a giant mullet. So, I don't know which was scarier.
Yeah. Style of the day. What do you have in the future that you're looking to work on now, or is it kind of just you kind of seek out projects, or how does that work for you? How something comes together? Do people reach out to you? How does that work?
It's kind of a combination. So a lot of the jobs I've gotten have been through word of mouth. I'll just get a referral from someone I've worked with in the past who meets up with someone who needs my services, and they'll just give them my contact information. So that's one way. But something I'm trying to work on for myself right now, and part of why I have so many knives out here, is I'm going to put up a website that has an example of each and every one of the weapons that I have already molded, so that other filmmakers can go there and choose their stunt weapons, and I can custom make anything that they need. So I'm just making an online catalog of all the stuff I have already available, that people will be able to go and browse and buy, like a rubber or a foam version of a knife or a gun or whatever they need for their film or their stage production or their cosplay or Halloween costume or what have you.